What's going on with Country Garden now?
Well, I mean, the warning signals definitely were raised late last week when it failed to really garner any demand for this $300 million, convertible bond. And as you rightfully said, this is one of the more financially viable, or long seen as the more financially viable developers. This has been the largest developer by contracted sales in China, overtaking Evergrande in 2017. So essentially the last 4 or 5 years, they've been number 1. And like all the other developers that are in this liquidity crunch right now, they relied heavily on overseas credit markets to fund expansion. And what they've done, like Evergrande, is expanded into third and fourth tier cities. 60% of their contracted sales are from those lower tiered cities, and where the risks seem to be mounting at a faster pace than the more developed places like Shanghai and in Beijing, tier 1 cities. So essentially, it's relied on this access to funding to grow exponentially. And you have to look at its liabilities and its upcoming liabilities. It has the largest pool of outstanding dollar bonds among China's biggest developers, excluding those defaulters, like, of course, Evergrande. $11.7 billion in outstanding liabilities. The next maturity is January 27th. It's relatively small, given their $29 billion in cash mountain at the end of June. But still, $425 million is the first of a lot of liabilities that are coming due this year, to the tune of $1.1 billion of bonds due this year. So again, this has 200,000 employees. It has more than 3,000 development projects in almost every single province in China. So any trouble at Country Garden is going to reverberate across the economy and across society. So that's why this is a big concern.
So, Steve, what's the property sector going to look like in a few years?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What is the end game of Xi Jinping? What is the end game as they take on big tech, as they take on these property developers and these multi-billion-dollar tycoons who have racked up huge amounts of debt to fund this expansion? I mean, just look at the video that we have of any developer, the wide expanse as far as the eye can see. These properties, are seen all across China. This is not just contained to Guangdong. A lot of these developers are based in Guangdong. Country Garden is Foshan-based. And others are based just across the border here, but it's all across China. And we've been putting this question to just about every economist that comes through our doors or across our screens, and they all have a similar, scenario. And let me just run through them very quickly. Hao Hong at BOCOM, he says, this transition will be long and painful. The transition, perhaps, of knocking these private developers and these over-indebted developers down to size and letting the state-owned enterprise, those with implicit guarantees, if you will, by the state banks and the like, they will be taking a bigger outsized role in the property sector. Ting Lu at Nomura, a slowdown is inevitable. The best we could expect is a relatively soft landing over the coming quarters. Iris Pang, I'll just wrap up here, ING. The outsized influence on the economy, as represented by the property sector, should fade out in 10 years and will be replaced by high-tech and green investments. Well, we'll have to see the scenario for high-tech as well, as that's under siege as well.